So, Lear by Edward Bond, as I mentioned, is an adaptation of Shakespeare's Lear. You can look up more about Edward Bond. He's a British playwright who was born in 1930s, and he actually went through the Second World War. He was born in 1934, and he's still alive. And he was a very small child when the Second World War happened. Second World War was from 1939 to 45. And as a very small child, he had first-hand experience of the Battle of London, where the bombing of London by the Nazi fleet. And he really saw the horrors of war firsthand, even when he was a very small child. And later, as he grew up, he also joined the army, and again he saw a lot of terrible things in his time, during his time in the army. So because of all these things, Lear's writings are extremely Bond's writings are extremely political, and at the same time there is a lot of violence in his plays. So one of his most famous plays, or one of the first plays by which he became famous, was called Saved, Saved, Saved. And this became a huge controversy because in this play there is a scene of a baby being stoned to death. Somebody is throwing stones at a baby and the baby dies. So this was a very terrible, violent moment, and the audience completely rebelled against it, and there was a court case against this play for being too violent and all that. So this amount of violence can be seen in all his plays as well. So this is something his plays are very political, however they are also extremely violent. So he's saying that the world is a violent place, and he is trying to show us that violence. In some sense it is also because we have got used to the violence around us in the world, because if you open the newspaper, if you look at the news, you can see all sorts of violent things. The same day there will be so many murders, rapes, accidents, all kinds of things, attacks, everything is happening. Wars are happening somewhere, some terrorist attacks are happening somewhere. So our contemporary world is super saturated with violence, and therefore we have all become desensitized to violence. And one of the things that Bond is trying to do is to shock us with the violent scenes in his plays, and re-familiarize it. So we have become desensitized. So he's trying to shock us so much that we have to encounter that violence once more, and then again become resensitized to violence. So these are some of the ideas, some of the main themes in his plays, and Lear is no different. So now in the case of Bond's Lear, there are some similarities, but also there are a lot of differences, which is why I said you should be familiar with the story of Shakespeare's King Lear. And those who have not looked it up, please look up a detailed summary afterwards, so that you can really appreciate the distinctions, the differences between Bond's version of Lear and Shakespeare's version. Anyway, so in Bond, now Shakespeare's plays, you all know they are usually 5-act plays. Bond's Lear is a 3-act play. There are 3 acts. In the first and second act there are 7 scenes each, and in the third act there are only 4 scenes. So that is structurally, that is one of the differences. But apart from that, the story is also highly modernized. So it is set, even though it is the story of Lear, you see that it is taking place not in ancient times, not in Renaissance times, but in the contemporary times. Contemporary as in during the mid 20th century when he was writing it. 1971 was the year in which the play Lear was first performed. So you can see that there is a very 20th century ethos about the entire play. So the setting is also, the time is also different, the time period. And then Lear is the main character of this play, and he is a king, just like in King Lear. But he has only 2 daughters, and their names are Bodice and Fontenelle. Bodice, Bodice and Fontenelle. You can, I hope that you have actually looked up the PDF that I have sent to. Otherwise, after this class, you can look up the PDF. So I thought that today we will mostly just go through the summary so that it becomes easier for you to understand when you read the PDF, or those of you who have already read the PDF can also hopefully this will clarify certain things. So Lear has two daughters, Baucis and Fontenelle, and they are unmarried. There is no Cordelia as of now, and the play starts with Lear building a wall. Now this is very politically relevant to us, because we are aware of first of all kinds of border tensions happening, especially today in India with China and all that. But you are also familiar with the idea of building a wall. That was the strategy behind the electoral campaign of Donald Trump, the American president. So building a wall to keep outsiders away is that is something that the character called Lear is doing in the story, because he's afraid that his enemies will come and try to conquer his kingdom. So he's building a wall to keep them out. And from the very first scene, Act 1, Scene 1 shows us Lear, who is coming with his daughters to inspect this wall. So the problem is that he has brought all the people, the farmers and peasants and all kinds of people, he has brought them together in order to build this wall. So he has taken them away from their works, from their homes and from their work. So they have no choice but to build this wall for Lear. But every night somebody comes and pulls down this wall. So during the day these people are building it, but at night some rebels come and pull down the wall, and nobody knows who's doing this. They keep trying to shoot the people who are doing it, but they are every night still. So they catch a lot of people, they kill a lot of people who are doing this, but still every night somebody comes and pulls down the wall. So Lear is convinced that it is his enemies, the Dukes of Cornwall and North. So in King Lear it is the Dukes of Cornwall and Albany, but here instead of Albany we have North, North, North. So the Dukes of Cornwall and North are people who live in countries that are very close to Lear's, in adjacent countries, and he thinks of them as his enemies because he had defeated the fathers of these two dukes. So he says their father was my enemy, so I'm sure the sons are also my enemies. But Baucis and Fontenelle, his daughters, are not very happy with this wall. They think that their father is unnecessarily wasting manpower and energy on building this wall, and they are trying to get him to stop building this wall. But Lear is obsessed with this wall. So Baucis and Fontenelle tell him that the Dukes of Cornwall and North are actually not very bad people. They have been secretly corresponding with the Dukes of Cornwall and North, and they want to marry them. So these two girls want to marry, Lear's daughters want to marry these two dukes. And Lear is not at all happy with this. Lear says, they are my enemies, they are just using you. How did you know them? When did you meet them? And they said, we have not actually met them. We have been sending letters to them, and they have sent us their photographs and letters and all that, and we want to marry them. And they have said that they have no enmity towards you. They have no problem. They want to stop this war. But the only thing they are asking is that you should break down this wall. So we will have this marriage, and all these three kingdoms will live in harmony because they are joined by marriage alliance. But the price that these two dukes are asking is that the wall should be torn down. But Lear is not at all happy. He doesn't want his daughters to marry these two dukes because he thinks of them as enemies, and he is sure that they are just using his daughters. And also he doesn't want to break down the wall because he says that even when I am dead, both of you can actually rule this country without any fear, because this wall will keep all the enemies away. So he's and then you can also see a lot of violence that he's doing, that he's behaving in a very brutal way towards the soldiers and the builders who are building the wall. So because of that, again, in this first scene we feel sympathetic towards his daughters, towards Baucis and Fontenelle, rather than towards Lear, because Lear is behaving almost like an obsessed person, like a madman. Anyway, so now Lear executes one of the soldiers for not doing his work properly. Bordis and Fontenelle try to stop him, but he doesn't listen. Then Lear has two counselors. In the actual story of King Lear, he has his very closest friend and counselor is the Earl of Gloucester, whom we have already mentioned, and there is also an Earl of Kent who remains loyal to Lear, but Earl of Kent is sent away from his favor because he dared to support Cordelia. So that is there in the original King Lear. But here we have the Lear in Bond's story has again two counselors. One person doesn't have a name, he's just called a counselor, and he's shown as a very opportunistic person. He will stay with whoever has power. Then there is another person called Warrington, who is like the commander of the army, and Warrington is extremely loyal to Lear. So he is a bit like the Earl of Gloucester, but he doesn't have any, there is no mention of him having any children or anything. So anyway, the two daughters try to persuade Warrington to keep their father aside, or to not let him build this wall, not let him do all these brutal things. But Warrington is very loyal to Lear, and he also does not listen to them. Then later Bordis and Fontenelle join with the Dukes of Cornwall and North, and they fight against Lear. So Lear is very upset because of this. But the fight goes on, and Lear is defeated. Lear's army is defeated. Now, while this fight is going on, we also get to see the characters of Bordis and Fontenelle, because even though in the beginning we felt a little, we might have felt a little sympathy for them, we realize that they are also extremely selfish people, because each of the sisters writes to Warrington asking him to betray their father. But each of the sisters also tells him to work against the other sister. So Bordis asks Warrington, you betray my father, you also fight against my sister Fontenelle, and then I will marry you, and both of us can rule this country. At the same time, Fontenelle also says the same thing to Warrington. You betray my father, you betray my sister, and I will marry you, we will live happily. But Warrington is very loyal, he doesn't do any of that. At the same time, the two sisters also hate their husbands, because after getting married, they realize that their husbands are not at all the kind of people that they thought they would be, and they only married them anyway because they wanted to escape from Lear. And so they also plan to kill their husbands. So Bordis has a plan that there will be one soldier in her husband's army who will kill the husband. And Fontenelle also seduces another soldier in her husband's army and asks him to kill her husband during the fight. But what happens is that as soon as the fight begins, these two soldiers are just having a conversation. That is, the soldier whom Bordis asked to kill her husband and the soldier whom Fontenelle asked to kill her husband. These two soldiers are having a conversation. At that time, the first bomb fell. The first bombshell fell between them, and both these soldiers died. So the two husbands are not killed, they nothing happens to them, but the two soldiers who were sent to kill the husbands, they die in the very first bombshell. And Bordis and Fontenelle are now victorious. But Lear somehow escapes, and Lear is all alone. All his other soldiers have been captured, but Lear escapes, and Warrington, however, is captured by the sisters. Now both the sisters are afraid that Warrington might reveal the fact that they wrote this letter. So Bordis is scared that Warrington will tell Fontenelle that Bordis was trying to betray Fontenelle. Same thing happens with Fontenelle. So she is afraid that Warrington will tell Bordis that Fontenelle wanted him to betray her. So because of this, the sisters they pull out his tongue. They cut out his tongue. So that is one of the extremely violent scenes. They cut out his tongue so that he cannot tell their secrets to anybody. And the two husbands they are not as evil. They are very stupid people, but they are not very as evil as these two women. So they don't really want to kill Warrington or torture him, but the two sisters decide that he is a threat. So they torture him and they actually force a soldier to, they tell a soldier to torture him, and while they are torturing him, you can also see the very strange ways in which these two women react. So Fontenelle keeps telling the soldier, you kick him, jump on his head, jump on his hands, all these things, and she keeps saying, I want to jump on his head, I want to break his bones, all these things. She becomes very bloodthirsty. Baucis, on the other hand, is always knitting. So throughout this play, whenever possible, she is knitting using her knitting needles, and she looks at this entire torture in a very bored manner, in a very detached, clinical manner. And at the end of that torture sequence, she takes her knitting needles and she pokes out Warrington's ears as well. So Warrington is completely, unlike Gloucester who was blinded in Shakespeare's King Lear, here Warrington is made both deaf and mute. His eardrums are punctured and his tongue is cut out, and he is almost like a mad person, and he is sent out into the fields. He is not killed, but he goes completely mad because he has been deformed like this. Now so that goes on. And then what we see is that Lear and the other counselor are the only two people who are left, and they are somehow trying to escape. So they are out there in the countryside somewhere. But the old counselor tells Lear, you rest here, I will come after some time. They're very tired and hungry and wounded and all that. And the old counselor says, I'll go and see if I can find some people to help you. You just rest here. So the old counselor leaves Lear in an empty countryside, and then he escapes. And then later we get to know that the old counselor has gone back to the sisters, and he has that is his character, that when Lear is in power, the counselor will obey whatever Lear says. When Baucis and Fontenelle come into power, the counselor betrays Lear and he goes to do their bidding. So he there is no loyalty for him. Okay, then so while Lear is sitting at that countryside and he is waiting for the old counselor, a boy comes. Now this boy, his name is not mentioned. He is called the grave digger's boy. The grave digger's boy. And he's not a very small boy, he's a young man actually, and he comes and he's a very kind and very gentle person. He comes and he sees Lear there, so he helps Lear, and he comes with a plate of bread and some water, because he has been seeing a wild man wandering around these areas, and the wild man is actually nobody but none other than Warrington, because Warrington has gone mad and he's been wandering around the countryside as well. So this boy doesn't know who he is, but he has been trying to help Warrington by giving him some food and water. So when he sees Lear, he also offers food and water to Lear, and he takes Lear to his house. So in his house, he has a wife, the grave digger's boy's wife. Her name is not revealed right now, and the wife is pregnant. And he tells, the grave digger's boy tells Lear that Lear can stay with them, and there are some pigs that they have. So they have a very small house, and they have a little bit of land where they do some farming. They have some pigs that they look after, and they have a very small but happy life. Lear is talking like a madman, and he keeps saying that the army will come and take me away. I am dangerous to have here, but these people don't believe him. The grave digger's boy is extremely kind, and he thinks that Lear is just an old man, some old man, and because he's so dirty and bedraggled and all, the grave digger's boy never thinks that he's the king. He doesn't even think that he's an officer. He thinks that he's just some old person who needs his help. So he says, you stay with us. Now, the grave digger's boy's wife is not at all happy. First of all, she is pregnant, and secondly, she is afraid that her husband is too naive and that he will be taken advantage of by other people. So first, she tries to ask her husband to send Lear away. But her husband says, this old man, he can't do anything, like somebody has to look after him, so it is not good to send him away. Let him stay here, he won't be any trouble, and now that you are pregnant, you will need a lot of help around the house, so let him help you, let him help with the farming, let him look after the pigs, let him feed the pigs and all that. And then she doesn't say anything because she realizes that this boy is just too good-hearted and he will never agree to send Lear away. Then later, she speaks to Lear himself, and she tries to persuade him to go away. But Lear is completely, he's also lost his mental balance, so he thinks that he doesn't really listen to her. He says, I will stay here, I won't go anywhere else. The boy told me to stay, so I will stay. But she says, you have to go away, and she tries to kind of persuade him, but he doesn't listen. Now one day while they are sleeping, Warrington comes, and Warrington has lost his mental balance completely. Now he has a knife and he wants to kill Lear. So he kind of considers that Lear is the reason for all his troubles, maybe. It's not very clear, but he comes and tries to kill Lear. But when the boy and his wife wake up, Warrington runs away. So there are many cases where Warrington comes, he creeps and he tries to attack Lear, but when he sees one of the other people, he runs away. But that night he actually manages to wound Lear. So this also happens, and they have a well. These people have a well, and what Warrington does is he goes down the well and he hides somewhere inside the well. So this is also what happens to Warrington. And later we get to know that he died while he was inside the well. So anyway, the next day the boy and his wife are talking, and the wife tells him to check the well, because there is Lear has found out that there is some blood inside the well. So now the boy goes down to check the well. Meanwhile, there is a carpenter from the village who comes to visit them often, and this carpenter, much later we get to know that his name is John, but here he is just, throughout the play he is just called the carpenter. And the carpenter is in love with the gravedigger's boy's wife, but she is she doesn't show any kind of love towards him, but he just loves her and he wants to help her in some way or the other. So he comes with a cradle for her child, and he keeps offering to do whatever work is needed around the house. So the girl tells him that there is some repair work that needs to be done. So he goes away to bring his tools. Now while the carpenter is away and the boy is inside the well, Lear and this girl are talking. Then suddenly some soldiers come, and the soldiers have come. They have been sent by Bodis and Fontenelle in order to catch Lear and bring him back, because Lear, many people might still think that Lear is the rightful king. So a lot of people might, if Lear is able to, if he is allowed to be free, he might amass another army and come and fight against them. So they are very afraid of him. They don't know that he has deteriorated to this extent. So they have sent soldiers to capture him. And when Lear sees the soldiers, he says, you take me, but don't harm these people. But that's not how soldiers work. So soldiers catch the woman and ask her, who else is here? And then Lear says, no, there's nobody, it's just me. And then they realize that she's pregnant, so they ask, who's the father of your child? Where is he? He must be also somewhere. So they want to kill both the gravedigger's boy and his wife. And at this time, the gravedigger's boy comes out of the well without knowing what is happening. So by this time what happens is that Lear tries to protest, but he is unable to stop the soldiers, and the soldiers kill the gravedigger's boy. They take the girl inside and they rape her, and some of them go and kill all the pigs. And then they toss the dead bodies of Warrington, because the gravedigger's boy had found the dead body of Warrington inside the well. So the soldiers toss the dead bodies of Warrington and the gravedigger's boy into the well. So now that well can also not be used anymore, and the girl is inside, she's being raped, the pigs are being killed. At this time, the carpenter comes. So the Lear has now been taken away by the soldiers, and when the carpenter comes back, he sees just this one soldier who's walking into the house, and the soldier doesn't see the carpenter. So the carpenter takes a chisel and he kills the soldier with it, and then he can hear the girl crying. And at this point, just before the gravedigger's boy dies, when he realizes that his wife is being taken away to be raped, he calls out her name, and her name is Cordelia. So the gravedigger's boy's wife is Cordelia in this story. So at the end, so this is how the seventh scene in the first act ends. So this is how the first act ends. The carpenter comes back, he kills one of the soldiers, takes his rifle and goes inside the house, and then we hear a series of rifle shots. So what we realize is that the carpenter has killed all the soldiers and rescued Cordelia. So this is the story of the first act. I will stop for a moment.